What's up, H-Town? Welcome to the Believe in Astros podcast, your home for all things Astros, with your hosts, sports writer Jeff Balke and Astros broadcaster and former third baseman Jeff Blum. Now, here's Balke and Blummer.
What is up, Astros fans? That's right, I am still rocking the birthday theme. Even after last week.
Hey, really celebrated.
Yeah. Dude, I know. And, you know, especially you should, because that's the main reason you should be celebrating. That's right. But milestones. Hey, mine's coming up this weekend, and I am and forever, unfortunately, will be older than you. But that is my burden to bear. Welcome everybody to episode 65 of the Believe in Astros podcast on the Believe Podcasting Network. I'm Jeff Balke, alongside my partner, fresh off turning 50 and back to after his birthday podcast, Jeff Blum. How are you doing this morning, Blummer? And happy belated.
I appreciate that. I'm doing relatively well considering, but it's always uplifting to hear another happy birthday shout out. So I appreciate you setting that up. That was very kind.
No problem. It's, you know, we got to do what we got to do around these parts to keep the joy rolling. Life is difficult enough. This podcast we should try to, got to try and have a little bit of fun.
Agreed.
As Sheryl Crow once said, I got to have a little fun. Wait, she didn't say that. I was going to say Sheryl Crow said it. Now I just feel like a moron. Somebody said you got to have a little. I know who it was now in my head, and it's a really obscure band that no one will know. But they said I'd like to have a little fun before my time on Earth is done. Oh. So now I've rolled through that and butchered that. Let's move on.
You gotta throw it out there now.
It's a band called 10 Hands. They were from Dallas in the 90s. Like, imagine imagine like a really good funk band combined with like Frank Zappa with like Peter Gabriel singing, that kind of thing. Bunch of talented nerd musicians from the University of North Texas in Denton, and their songs were really funny, including that little ditty, which was actually called "Don't Even Fuck Around," if I recall the title correctly. So yeah, it was fun. Anyway, I saw them a lot at Fitzgerald's. Rest in peace, Fitzgerald. Speaking of rest in peace, Gordon Lightfoot, who passed away yesterday at the tender age of 84, the Canadian singer-songwriter. If you grew up in the 70s like me, you remember such hits as Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald and Sundown, and of course, Carefree Highway, so R.I.P. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher. I mean, if you love this scintillating conversation about 90s funk bands and Gordon Lightfoot, I said, I got to get a COVID test today. My wife was exposed. I'm hoping we don't have it, so this is how my day is starting. Be sure to like and subscribe. Exactly. Be sure to like and subscribe to keep up with us, and give us a follow on Twitter or Instagram at Believe in Astros. You can find me at Jeff Balke and Blummer at Blummer27 all over social media. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel, get alerted to videos, and please continue to leave us reviews on Apple, 5 stars. Just come on, go ahead and do that if you haven't, and send us your comments. My question today, is: will we have any starting pitching left by the end of this week?
Dear God. Yeah,
because
I'm curious too.
It sure feels like we won't. Let's just dive into that, Blummer. I guess Jim Crane must have seen something when he said the bullpen is the key to success this offseason. We haven't seen Lance McCullers yet.
Get there.
Exactly. We haven't seen him play yet. And in the last 2 days, the Astros have lost Jose Urquidy to shoulder soreness. Fortunately, no damage shown in the MRI, which is good, but he's going to be out at least for a little bit. They're going to shut him down for a little bit and then you've got Luis Garcia going down yesterday, and no reports yet, no MRI yet, but pain in the elbow is just not a good sign. So, man, what is going on?
Dude, I don't know. And like you said about Jose Urquidy, just real quick, you hope it is just a little bit of soreness, stiffness in that shoulder, maybe some inflammation that they can control and get down and get him back in that rotation. He's proven to be a good innings eater for the Astros, which is nice, and he can lengthen himself out and get to that bullpen that you're talking about. And then Luis Garcia, man, this is probably – I'm not going to it's hard to say it's more frustrating than Urquidy, but both of them are very frustrating injuries because notably for Luis Garcia, because the two previous starts were outstanding. He went out there shutty for 13 innings against the Blue Jays and Tampa Bay Rays, two contending teams, 16 punch outs in those two ball games. Everything for him was starting to trend in the right direction. The velocity had bumped a little bit and got back to that 93, 94 range. And he has that cutter from hell that he's been throwing and been hyper effective with. And then all of a sudden, 8 pitches into that ball game, velocity was down about a mile an hour on the fastball. And 8 pitches later, he comes out with the elbow. And anytime you hear right elbow, pitching elbows with anybody across the league, like Jacob deGrom up in Arlington, you start to panic a little bit and you worry and you get concerned. And how long is it going to be? What exactly is the damage? So that's what we're all waiting to hear. And it is frustrating. And I would imagine one of the things you're going to ask me here pretty soon is, does this have anything to do with the WBC?
Well, there's a number of questions related to that. I mean, you mentioned Luis Garcia and you nailed it. I mean, I pulled this out in the last podcast. I said that, in those last 2 games, he took his ERA down from the high 7s to 4. He had also given up 1 run on 5 hits with 16 strikeouts and 4 walks. He threw 92 and 97 pitches, going 7 and 6 innings respectively. So, yeah, that's not good when you've got a guy that's going like that. And you bring this up. So there was a story in The Athletic this morning about whether or not the rise in injuries might be related to the pitch clock, right? Because we've seen a lot of guys getting hurt this year.
You're right.
Right. Robbie Ray, Johnny Cueto, Jacob deGrom. Like, there is a run on starting pitchers this year. And one of the things that they mentioned is that guys in the major leagues, like in the minor leagues, injuries actually went down when the pitch clock was just slightly. But the thing is, major league pitchers throw harder. The velocity hasn't gone down this year. They're pitching harder later into games. Pitchers are going deeper into games. So, and then, of course, like you said, Dusty Baker mentioned the WBC last night as another possibility. I mean, I guess fatigue could be an issue. I was going to ask you this specifically, like, how much fatigue is – I mean, we look at baseball on TV and it seems like, well – there's a lot of kind of hanging out, right? It doesn't feel like it's not like watching football or basketball or even soccer where they're just running and running and running. But there's a lot to put on a pitcher when they're throwing the ball repeatedly that hard. Is speeding that up, does that make that much of a difference?
I don't know. These are starting pitchers that we're hearing about having these injuries. So that's what kind of piques my interest about this. And is it the pitch clock? Because the only reason I bring that up is because relievers usually come in for an inning, maybe 2 innings if they're one of those guys. Right. But if you're a back end of the bullpen type guy, an Abreu, Montero, Neris, Stanek,
Maton,
Ryan Presley, and you're a max effort guy, you only have to throw maybe 15 to 20 pitches per outing, and you're doing it in a short amount of time. So I would imagine that if those injuries are happening, why aren't they happening to relievers? Maybe it's the repetition, or maybe it's getting into that 70, 80, 90 pitch zone where you start to speed things up and you start to maybe overcompensate because you are fatigued. That's an interesting point. I'll have to read that article and see if they'd go in depth on that. But at the same time, earlier in the season, there was actually an interview with Max Scherzer where he said, I've got to be in better shape. I'm older. My body is older. I've got more pitches on my right arm. I need to be in better shape to compete with the pitch clock and be able to be competitive on the field. So there might be some validity to that argument that's saying that fatigue is a little bit of an issue, because if you are sped up and you're pitching a little more frequently and throwing harder, that could lead to some issues later on in the ballgame, probably.
Well, and they brought up Scherzer's comments in this story. I do think about that. that maybe it's not just the question. They're condensing these pitches into a much shorter period of time, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say before they throw 70 or 80 pitches, and that's over 2 hours maybe. Now they're throwing 78 pitches over an hour and 20 maybe. So they're shaving a bunch of time off. And anything that you do that exerts yourself, if you do it in a short, and Scherzer even said it. He said, you run from, foul pole to foul pole. Now do it 10 seconds faster or whatever it is. It's like you're gonna fatigue yourself.
Abbreviate that rest time in between those laps and see how you react. You're gonna be fatigued quicker.
Yeah, and so I imagine that could be a part of it. Obviously, we don't have enough data to be able to tell us one way or the other yet. But I mean, there's what was the guy in the New York Mets that went down? And there's guys that are now missing for the year. Like Jake Odorizzi gone for the year for the Rangers. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys, really, it's been kind of a weird year. Now, the only thing you can say is, I mean, it's happening to everybody. It's not just, this is not isolated to the Astros. We're seeing a lot of pitchers get hurt and a lot of guys. So you're just going to have good depth, which brings me to the question. Brandon Bielak came up last night, was solid, for his time. Mm-hmm. If Garcia goes out, which I think at this point we have to feel pretty comfortable in the assumption that he's going to miss at least a start. Forrest Whitley, who we've all been praising, has had a couple of real stinker outings lately. So you got to think maybe JP France or Sean Dubin. I mean, France's stash is ready for the show, but is his arm?
Yeah. Well, that's like me dyeing my hair back in the day. It is enough to distract from my lack of talent. I don't think that's the case for JP France. I think he's good enough. It's just, can these guys compete at this level? And, to your point about Luis Garcia, I think you need to get mentally prepared for that maybe IL stint just to protect him, not force him to come out and start the next game, knowing that he has that injury in the back of his mind. Maybe give him a couple of starts off, make sure he's right, strengthen him up, and get him back out there. And you also need to get mentally prepared that Brandon Bielak is going to be the guy that fills that void, because he backed up Luis Garcia yesterday. So he slots into that part of the rotation moving forward if you're Dusty Baker. And you're right. The other thing you got to think about is who's on the 40-man roster that's a starting pitcher, so you don't have to manipulate your roster or sacrifice guys, DFAing them or losing them on the waiver wire. JP France, Sean Dubin, and Forrest Whitley are those guys. And to be honest, I'm kind of curious if they don't just give Forrest Whitley a chance. Say, hey, look, we've been sitting on you for the last 5 or 6 years. You've been you've shown flashes of brilliance. We still believe in you. This might just be the time that you say, hey, let's go. And you got to look at the schedule too, because this month of May, you're facing sub 500 teams in the Giants, Mariners. The Angels are actually playing pretty good, but they're still sub 500. The Chicago White Sox have been beat around. So this might be an opportunity in your schedule to actually give time off to these guys, give a Forrest Whitley a chance, and see what happens.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think it's probably well past time, for Forrest Whitley to have his shot. I mean, the Astros they've been pretty aggressive about bringing hitters up, but they sometimes are a little slow on the draw when it comes to pitchers. And feels like this is how much longer can you wait with a guy like that? It feels like it's time.
Yeah, that might be where they're at.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, I wonder too last night if Ronel Blanco was warming up. I wonder if it wasn't strategic of Dusty to say, let's go ahead and let Presley come in and finish this thing up, because we might need innings out of Ronel Blanco. Maybe not as a starter, but if you do have to bring somebody, if you do have to bring somebody up to start in Luis Garcia's spot next time, and certainly you've got Bielak who's going to be pitching. I guess you could go to a 4-man rotation for a while if you needed to, but I wonder if they're going to start preserving some of these guys. I mean, look, serial killer.
Well, you need the
Phil
protection.
Maton. Yeah. I mean, Maton went 2 and looked.
Maton's damn filthy right now, by the way.
Dude,
holy crap.
Dexter is taking some people down right now. I mean, he may as well
carving them up.
He's exactly. He's, you know what else, Plummer?
Borderline orgasmic.
That's right. He's borderline orgasmic right now.
I mean, that made the show nice.
The dude is just. I have to bring him up because every time I see him out there, and it's funny because I talked about it last week. It's like I saw him at the game with a little kid who was from Make-A-Wish, and he was just so sweet with him and just so.
Dude,
like
he was smiling ear to ear. You're like,
it was just so cool. But when you see him on the mound, he looks like he's got people wrapped in plastic back in the locker room. You know, I mean, so that's what just saying.
He is wrapping them in plastic. He's he's taking body counts the way he's pitching right now.
He really is. And so maybe these are
terrible metaphors, by the way.
These are awful metaphors, but it's like, but look, man, the dude does look like a serial killer on the mound. I'm just saying. But I will say that here. We can say that here. Exactly. Especially knowing what a nice guy he is. You can say that.
This is
you
our
can
safe
say those
space,
kind of things.
our circle of trust.
Exactly. I will say that the offense is going to have to start picking it up now. I mean, they did last night. Giants are not playing well. They're struggling. And there was a good story the other day on Jose Abreu's struggles. I don't know if you read that, but it was kind of fascinating to read the fact that he doesn't think it's mechanical, but Alex Cintron thinks it might be mechanical.
If you get a chance, for you as well as fans at home, check out Fangraphs. There's a really good article on Jose Abreu also.
I saw that. Excellent. And right now he doesn't seem to be seeing the ball very well. I mean, he's gotten a few. I mean, he's still Jose Abreu, right? He's still gonna. Yeah. When he does get wood on the ball, it's gonna go a ways. He's gonna hit the ball hard. But yeah, what have you seen looking at him, Blummer, that makes you think that what is making him not right now?
I just feel like he is feeling for the baseball or he's trying to get hits. And I feel like when you start to try and get hits, you try to go get the baseball instead of sitting back and really start to drive the ball and get on your backside. I kind of see his balance really in the middle part of his body where you'd like to see it a little more 60-40 on the backside. And when you start to stride with your swing, you get that front foot out there. You want to stay on that backside and keep the hands back. What I'm seeing is those hands kind of drifting a little bit. So he's getting jammed on, 92 to 95, which is uncharacteristic for him. But I saw some more aggressive swings in that first game against San Francisco. So I'm hoping, I'm like Andy Dufresne. I'm nurturing the hope that there is hope. And it's a good thing.
Nice.
With the swing from Jose Abreu, because if he can get to Jose Abreu and find that Jose Abreu swing, he's going to be such a nice addition to that lineup. But he needs to stop thinking about trying to get base hits, as crazy as that sounds, and he needs to think about, how do I get ready to hit the ball as hard as I possibly can? And I think once he gets to that mental state, he'll be in much better shape to fight off 95 and hammer it. And when he's not hammering the 95, he'll get hanging breaking balls that his hands are back on and he's ready to explode on. So it's just a matter of him getting comfortable and creating that separation between that front foot and those hands to get that kind of power and that torque going in that swing.
I just wonder too if he's feeling any, I'm sure you've gone through it.
He's human.
I looked at my notes and I had made a note a minute ago to come back to talking to you about your dyed hair, but we'll save that for another episode because I'm going to look that one up. I'm going to look that one up just so you know, because I've got to find out what that was like. But I think the thing to me is he's going through this slump, and I'm sure you've gone through it. Although it's hard for me to believe. What is it like when you're up there? Like when you're feeling that pressure, it's obviously got to weigh on you, mentally. Absolutely. And it's got to affect how you do it. I mean, what does it do to you physically when you're up there? I mean, is it make you hesitate in your swing? Like what exactly are the ramifications physically?
It's paralysis, and it's not analysis that creates the paralysis. It's the overthinking that creates that, because you've got these ideas in your mind that, oh, I just signed a big deal with a new team. I've got to go out there and perform and put up numbers and show that I'm worthy of this contract, instead of just going out there and being Jose Abreu. And you know what? I could be completely wrong also, but having been traded and trying to prove myself before in my career, it has created issues. And all ball players are human. You hear about these guys signing these contracts and trying to do a little too much. And then, once you get past the, man, you know what? Forget about it. I'm not going to try and impress everybody. I need to find my swing. And then all of a sudden that doubt seeps in and you go, why can't I be me? And that's almost where it gets worse, because then you're deeper inside your skull, and now you're trying to fight your swing, you're trying to fight your brain, and all of a sudden the ball's coming at you at 95 miles an hour, and it feels like you're trying to merge onto a highway going 100 where everybody's going 150 and you're going 70. So it's really tough to try and pick your spots and slow things down in order to get out there, and that's where he's at right now. I just think that it's part mental, it's part mechanical, and when you put those two things together, it doesn't add up.
I wonder too if Uncle Mike's going to be back pretty soon. I don't know what his impact is going to be. We haven't seen him swing or anything like that. He hates the pitch clock, he has mentioned in Sugarland, which I'm sure he does. All veteran hitters got to be hating
Mike
on that
for his
thing.
honesty.
I know, he's so good. They're like, "How'd you feel about it?" I hated it. It's really uncomfortable. That was his line. It's so good. I wonder if too, if having that guy, because look, out of everybody, Brantley's the most senior veteran, really, maybe except for Maldonado. But you're not going to go to Maldonado for hitting advice. But Brantley, is a guy he's a professional hitter. I kind of got to feel like maybe his impact will have some help for the lineup as a whole, but also maybe take some of the pressure off of Abreu. Getting anybody back will be good. I know. Looking at Jose Altuve, he looks good. Just saying.
Dude, he has a cast off and he's texting with both thumbs. I mean, it's great news.
Is he texting with both thumbs? Nice.
You didn't see that Yordan Alvarez Instagram where he showed Jeremy Pena juggling in the weight room, and in the background is Jose Altuve, with both thumbs going doot, 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 and everybody's like, nobody's looking at Jeremy Pena. They're looking at Altuve going, oh man, he doesn't have a cast on,
That's amazing. That's the kind of stuff you just can't buy content like that. You know what I'm saying? That is the kind of that's the
my
kind of
daughters
stuff
have taught me to not look at what the focus of the picture is. Look at the background. Look at
really?
the background.
Your daughters are
they
your
zoom
daughters
in on
wisdom.
everything.
Do they really? You gotta love that.
If I take a picture in the booth, they're like, Dad, why is that on your desk? What is that? Why is that there? What what does that mean? Oh, did you see his face? Who is that guy photobombing? I'm like, good grief. I can barely keep my eyes on the picture itself.
That's amazing. I will say it was good to have you back in the booth, by the way, after being out for a couple of games. It was really good. Last night, I heard you. There's nothing that makes me laugh more than when you make a joke. Oh, no, it's all good. There's nothing that makes me laugh harder than when you make a joke and you hear Todd Callis. He just goes silent for a second, and you might hear just the tiniest chuckle, just like a small, and then he just keeps calling the game. It just, to me, like, I love those things because I love it when I know that I've made even just if one person laughs and nobody else thinks it's funny, I'm good with that. And so those 100%. Kind of things just crack me up, man. When he's,
I've told you I heard before, you say, and I think
go ahead.
We said it on this podcast where I'm trying to break TK every once in a while.
Yeah, you've told me that.
Get him to break character. He's the best straight man ever.
Has it ever happened?
Yeah, I've gotten him a couple of times. There were the first game in Tampa. I cannot remember for the life of me what I said, but man, he all of a sudden, I got a full blown out of him. And I was like, man, I need to start taking notes when I do that so I can remember.
Right? Oh, it's critical.
Jose Abreu was at first base after a base hit, and he's talking to Omar Lopez, and they're both kind of laughing and chuckling. And I said that Jose Abreu is trying to convince Omar to unbutton at least one button on his jersey because Jose Abreu unbuttons them all. Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty good. That is pretty good.
Look, Jose Abreu. Great.
Yeah, I love when you said that's wise. And then there was
he said, and wisely takes the curveball for ball 2. And I said, yes, that is wise.
And I heard him. This was the best part in that. If you didn't hear it last night, the best part was this is what it sounded like. You said, yes, that is wise. And you just hear, like, that's it. You just heard like this tiny little, like, it's just, that's it. That's all you got. But it's so good. It's so good. It's like,
he's great.
It's priceless. It's excellent. So Major League Baseball, and I'm sure you saw this, announced that the Astros and Rockies are going to play a game in Mexico City next year. We saw, or a series, I should say, not a game. And we saw how that ball went flying out of the stadium.
Good Lord. I
mean, that'll ruin a pitcher's career right there. You think hitting trash cans ruin careers? I mean, just play some games in Mexico City.
7,000 feet?
I know. Have you ever been to Mexico City? Mexico City is awesome.
Never. I've been to a lot of places in Mexico. I have not been to Mexico City.
Oh, it's fantastic. It is so great. It is an outstanding city and super fun and loads to do, great food. But yeah, it's high. It's high. And so when you get up there, the ball is going to travel. And so pitchers better be ready, but also it's good for baseball, right? I mean, playing these games in you see the NFL play in Mexico City, play in London, playing places like that. It's
Mexico makes sense. I mean, at least logistically, I feel like it's closer, so you'd be able to travel there a little more frequently and not get buried by overseas travel. But we played in Monterey a couple of years ago against the Angels, and we had a blast down there. That was one of the best weeks I've had broadcasting. The ball did fly there a little bit too, but at the same time, I don't know if you heard this, but that first game in Mexico City between the Padres and the Giants, their humidor was not set to the appropriate levels to keep that ball from flying the way it did. So basically, it wasn't humid. There was no humidor up there protecting those baseballs. So that first game was ridiculous with 11 home runs in that game. Where guys are just getting pummeled and anything airborne was going out of the stadium. They flipped the switch on the humidor, and the next day it was just a modest 6-4 game or 8-4, something like that.
What? I did not know that, dude.
There was a humidor issue.
I'm just gonna say, maybe leave it off just for fun. Just let's see what happens. I mean, dude,
here we go again. Back in my day, when we went through Colorado, there was no humidor, man. We were chomping at the bit. If you weren't in the lineup, or if I wasn't in the lineup, I was in the manager's office going, I need to play.
Of course you were. Why wouldn't you have been? I mean,
flipping them out of there. It's crazy.
That's you. If next year when the Astros play in Mexico City, you should take BP. I'm just saying, tell them to flip the switch on the humidifier, humidor, whatever it is, and go out there and take a little BP. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I think it's going to be fun. So one more thing from Major League Baseball at large. So the A's situation is going to get really weird. They've said they're not.
It's bad now.
It's going to get
worse.
Really bad. They said they're probably not going to be able to move before 2027, and that's assuming they can get the money from Las Vegas. They're asking them to pony up millions in public funds. Fans are already protesting at the game, and I don't know if you caught this, but in the highlights on MLB, they cropped out protest signs.
What are we
MLB
doing?
And then apparently they said, we didn't realize that's what happened, and then they put him back or whatever. It's like,
there's no way they're getting out of a doorway sideways by saying that.
I know, exactly. So here's the thing, Wilmer. How weird is it gonna get in Oakland? I mean, first of all, they're terrible. The team is terrible, and they're not going to be good because they're not going to spend any money before they go to Vegas. And if they're there for another 3 years, 4 years, good Lord, what's it going to look like in 2026?
Because there's no reason to maintain the stadium. There's no reason to maintain the team. There's no reason to do anything. So they're going to be hawking all their money and taking all the revenue sharing that they get from the Yankees and Mets and just pocketing it for future use. But it's going to get bad. And if if these fans realize that they're starting to have an impact because they are getting cropped out, guess what? That's going to make them a little more aggressive and a little more incentive to go out there and start ticking people off. And, it's a shame because those fans are great, but, I'm not sure. I would have to double check. and I don't know if there's a way to, but I'm almost positive in a sense that their lease, like they had to sign an extension on the Oakland Coliseum because there's nobody there. They're the only place in town for them to play is the Coliseum. What if their lease is up in in 2025? What do they do in 2026 while they're waiting for the stadium to be built? I mean, there's so many logistical nightmares with this whole situation that's going on. You have no idea what's going to happen, and it's only going to get worse, like you were saying, for the fans. How about being a player? I mean, you're just being completely neglected for the next 3 years and knowing that you're basically playing to get out of Oakland.
I mean, it's so bad. Like you could say lame duck, but this is worse than that. I mean, this is like a lame flock of geese. Like this is going to be just unbelievably bad if it continues to go that way. And of course, like
I don't understand it.
They don't even know if they're going to get a place in Vegas. They're asking for the Vegas to pony up a bunch of money, which of course, look, I've been through the arena.
Now costs $1 billion. Good grief!
Right. I've been through all of them. Like I was here when the Breimer bill was passed, that allowed Minute Maid. I've been through it all, and I can tell you right now, public funds don't necessarily do anything. I mean, it's great for a city to have a team, and I would never trade it. And I'm willing to put some of my money where my mouth is, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a huge boon to the city financially. And so when people tell you that, that's not really true. And now you've got them trying to get Vegas, who's already got the Raiders. Speaking of which, what's up with Oakland and Vegas? Like, it just, good Lord, man. Everybody's walking away from Oakland and going to Vegas. I just think that's going to be something to watch because there could be real issues with that. Like, there could be serious. Yeah. I mean, who's going to want to play there? Like, I mean, who is going to want to play at that?
Well, the money's going to bring those guys there. That's the thing is you're going to have to actually pay people to go play for that team and actually set that city up and say, look, you committed to us. We're going to commit to you by putting a team out there that's going to be competitive. But, there's tourist taxes already in Nevada.
And
so, I mean,
Vegas is huge.
How much more? Yeah, so they're going to that tourist tax is just going to go up all over the planet to try and compensate for this, and it's going to have to be a retractable dome, if not just a domed stadium. So, I don't know. It's crazy to think about, but there has to be if the city's going to commit, obviously the team's going to have to commit, and is that organization? That's what I was curious about in the first place. Does Vegas want Oakland? Not Oakland. Does Vegas want the A's? I should say, not Oakland. That's disrespectful to the city of Oakland.
Yeah, right.
But does Vegas say, yes, let's pony up the money because we like the A's organization? I don't know.
And also it puts all sorts of weird, like, it also delays and causes issues with what Major League Baseball is going to do in terms of expansion. Because they're going to have to sit around and wait on this. Because the truth is, if Oakland, for whatever reason, if the A's don't move, they're probably not going to put another team on the West Coast. They're not going to pick Portland or somebody like that. But if the A's do move, then maybe they do. So it's gonna affect that whole calculus when it comes to figuring out a new team. It's just a mess, and it didn't have to be a mess. But as usual,
well, you bring up, you're talking about expansion because Major League Baseball wants to get to 32 teams, and everybody keeps saying, 5, 6, 7 years. It kind of fits the window that the A's are looking at. But you don't want to expand with them. But if they do take up a slot out west, it kind of eliminates an idea of Portland maybe or somebody else on that West Coast.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is going to be fascinating. I'm like you said, I've had spent some time with the whole arena thing in the past. So it always sort of intrigues me to watch what happens and how these cities and teams deal with it. So I don't know. It's going to be weird. I'd say this, I'm sure you can get a ticket. If you're in the Bay Area, you want to catch an A's game, I'm guessing plenty of tickets available. Plenty of tickets available. All right, thanks everybody for joining us. Blummer, you got any final thoughts on this Tuesday?
Good to be back. 2 more games against the Giants, and then we go on an early, very long trip, 3-city trip: Seattle, Anaheim, Chicago. And these are very beatable teams. This is a real opportunity for the Astros to boost not only their individual numbers, but also get that record pumped up, maybe pass up the Texas Rangers.
Maybe if everybody could do like a laying on of hands on Hunter Brown and Framber Valdez and Christian Javier, just to keep wrap them in bubble wrap between each start, whatever you got to do. All right, guys, we'll be back later this week for a fresh pod brought to you by BetOnline. Again, a huge thanks to all our listeners and viewers. You guys are always great. Keep liking and subscribing. We're super thankful for all of you. Keep it coming. Have a great week. We'll talk to you on Friday. Go Astros.